Hi, I want to welcome everybody here. It's Friday, May 22nd, and there is a group here with Tom Wing, and we are here to talk together and hear from you, Tom. So I want to welcome you to the call. One thing I want to mention is there will be some background noise on Tom's end because he's in the process of some construction work. So we'll just do our best to work with whatever noise shows up. And Tom, I want to introduce you to everybody and thanks for coming. And I'm wondering how you would like to begin this call.
Okay. Excuse me. Well, I'd like to begin by checking in with people who are on the call as to why they're on the call. You know, what would they like to have happen?
Well, I've been doing just about all of these talk calls, Tom, and it's because I just love to continue learning.
Hey.
For me, well, Tom, I'm just so thrilled to see you. It's just amazing. And I want to know if you're teaching at all, because I would love to come back and study with you. And, you know, in general, I'm really looking to just grow and stay in touch with other golfers and just enrich what I'm doing. And to figure out, actually, it was interesting because Liz mentioned to have questions. And, you know, there's all kinds of uncertainties that come up while I'm working, but when I actually try to figure out a question, that was sort of not so easy. So that's interesting. So you never know what you're going to learn, but already, you know, trying to figure out questions is, you know, provoking my own thought. So it's just wonderful to see you.
You too.
Yeah.
I'm interested in like kind of the beginnings of the work and how it's evolved over time and how it is now. Just it's there's a lot I don't know, but very interesting to wonder how it was, how Ida Rolf worked and how it was at the beginning and how it's evolved over time. I've been yeah, that's it.
Thanks.
So we have one more person entering the call right now. Hi, Buddy. Buddy, can you hear us?
Hello.
So, Buddy, just to catch up, if you can know where your mute button is for background noise, and also your gallery view. And then we've all begun. So Tom had asked a question. What was the question you asked, Tom?
What people wanted from the meeting? Why were they on the meeting, and what were they to talk about?
So, Buddy, if you would like to ask Tom a question, something you're interested in, and you're muted right now. So when you're speaking, you want to unmute. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I don't know what anybody else has asked so far, but Tom, I was wondering about your ideas. I wanted to hear what you thought about the 10 series and your feeling about the 10 series, how you perceived the idea of structural integration as part of the 10 series, and how it's informed you and your work.
Good one, yeah.
So how would you like to begin with all of that, Tom? Where would you go?
Can I throw one in too?
I can't talk for a minute.
Tom, it's great to see you, and I haven't seen you
There's a
since.
saw right here in my ear. Just a second. They should be done in a second. So.
One of the issues we were having, Buddy, is that Tom has some construction at his house, and so the sound is a little rough. Okay, so there's Tom Robinson who's going to ask a question.
Hi, Tom. It's great to see you. And I haven't
too.
seen you since I became a Rolfer. I'm a new Rolfer, really. I've been in Rolfer for a year now. And I'm interested about intuition. This work becomes so intuitive, which was what attracted me to it anyway. But
Would you say that a little louder, Tom? I couldn't quite get it.
I'm really interested in the whole intuitive part of the work. I find that I will do all of the structural analysis at the start of a session and then put the person down on the table and find other things to work on. And my hands will find other things to work on. And I'm just learning about this, but anything you can do to comment on that. I remember when I first saw you again after so many years, and I said, just Rolf, what you think you should work on, and you went to my head for about half an hour. I remember you saying something about you look for what the essence of someone is when they come to a session, something like that, and you want to help them get towards that. If you can speak more to that during the course of this call, that would be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So has everybody been able to ask a question?
I have a question. This is Bob. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Bob.
Tom was my teacher in my practitioner phase about 30 years ago. So I just want to see if you've gotten any wiser, Tom.
I think just older, not much wiser.
That was good.
But I also have another.
Okay, so what's happening right now? Ed Hemberger, if you can mute your computer.
Okay, I just did.
Great.
I just did.
Okay, now.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we want to see if you've gotten any wiser.
Yeah. But, I do have another question. You know, I've been, teaching the work that I do the last, probably 10 years, and I've had a lot of Rolfers in my classes and structural integrator people, Heller workers, and so on. And it's interesting to me that if there's a group of people with a structural integration background, the conversation always goes, okay, what is Rolfing or what is structural integration? And, there's, on one hand, I think there, you could say it's, the inquiry is alive and healthy. And, but on the other hand, I have real questions about why we're still asking that question 50 years later. Because it seems to me that there is a core that we should all know the answer to that question.
Seems to you that there's a goal, did you say?
I said, it seems to me that that after 50 years, we should have some common understanding of what that is. So that's my question.
Boy, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a question that Ida refused to answer.
Well, look what happened.
Yeah, I know.
And Ed, how about you? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a specific question about keeping the neck forward. And Dr. Finley actually gave me a video of Ida, and she talked,
Just a second, Ed.
and Ida talked about.
I'm going to ask you to hold it a minute. This darn
Okay.
stuff's happening.
So while we're holding your question, Ed, Rebecca, did you get a chance to speak? And Jim?
Thank you. I actually have a couple of questions.
Okay, so let's
Oh, shit.
we'll wait for Tom to come back. Sorry, this is goofy, but it is what it is.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I think we're half a mile away from each other.
Yeah, it's great.
Where are you two located?
Um,
Go ahead.
I'm in Montclair, New Jersey. And Ed, where are you these days? Are you in Morristown?
I'm actually in Marsh. Well, I actually moved to Montclair about 3 years
Oh
ago,
my
so
God.
I'm, yeah, we're neighbors twice.
Tom,
Yeah.
how's the sound on your end?
I'm mostly hearing.
You're mostly hearing? Okay.
Yep.
So why don't we try your question again, Ed?
I just wanted to know about the keeping the neck forward, and Tom Finley gave me a video of Ida about how the fourth rib is so important, but I still don't think I'm getting the results that I like to get. And then what about doing the front line from a Tom Myers thing? But I don't know if that's worked either. So it's kind of a two-part question, I guess.
Okay. So we have a little bit of philosophy, recipe, specifics, and Rebecca, your turn.
One of my questions is around, and I'm interested to hear from everybody, just how you, over the years, it feels like I've had to reinvent how I'm working with my body in order not to hurt it. I've acquired strain in my hands at times, and I'm working with my elbows a lot. And I've actually been trying to do the arm rotations, and so I'm interested to find out how people keep themselves open and in working order, basically, how they replenish their bodies and not get into trouble, which is a very big question. And the other question is just in terms of when a person walks in, they very often present with a symptom. And Tom, I'm wondering how you frame the entire person and the symptom, like how you organize that for yourself when you're, sort of organizing how, their presentation, and then how you work with them, where you keep that sort of symptom, in your organization. So, yeah.
If I can, not to be too general, Tom, but I actually did come with a specific question. I've been reviewing my notes from your class 100 years ago, and I've always find myself very intrigued by discussions and thoughts about the three axes, the XYZ axes. Can you nudge your head up and down in response?
I didn't know if we're done. That you were still in the midst of
Tom, is
saying
that where you say you actually learned that from me?
So if there's time and room for any discussion about that, I would get that.
Yeah.
Great. So there are a lot of questions, and I think, Tom, you have to start somewhere. So why don't you start? And what we'll do is we'll invite ourselves in to comment. Has anybody else not spoken? Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Okay, what I think I'd like to do is some of them can be woven together in my mind. And so I'm going to start with taking off from what Buddy asked, that in terms of the recipe and its place in my work, in my understanding. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Everybody can hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
And, so when I started out in 71, and at that time the recipe was something that was not supposed to be passed around. When you went into training, you were supposed to sit in the training as an auditor and watch what happened and try to figure it out on your own. Oh, there you are. On my screen, people just flipped. So it was something that was talked about, and Ida would talk about it, but her idea was that everyone would watch what happened and try to get an understanding of what the recipe was from that. Well, Roger Pierce helped me out by taking me back behind the building and giving me a copy of his, but it was at that level. But the recipe, as Ida talked about it, was a tool to be able to start the work, and by doing the work, come to an understanding. Not something that would be a frame that would hold you in place for all the work you ever did. She would say it takes 5 years to become a rolfer. That, I think, was her understanding of, by following the sequence of objectives and goals and areas of work, that the work would teach you what the recipe was about. You know, the recipe was a formulation to assist a person to get the experience necessary, and at the same time have a safety net for yourself and for the person you're working with. Is this making sense
Mhm.
for everybody?
Yes.
And when I first started out, I decided that for 5 years I would do nothing but the recipe and do the work and find out what the work would teach me. And I wouldn't take supplementary classes of any kind, but just do nothing but follow the recipe, follow the recipe, follow the recipe, follow the recipe. And about a year and a half into it, I wasn't getting enough work in Boulder because Boulder was already saturated with 3 other rolfers at that point. So I started commuting once a month from Boulder to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for 9 days a month. And that's how I made my earnings, was to work 9 days a month in Milwaukee, doing 40 sessions in 9 days. And I worked primarily with people who had never had any body work whatsoever, never had a massage, never had anything like that. And they were people that came to it through psychotherapy. Psychotherapy was the primary purpose of the place where I was working, and the primary source for people to hear about rolfing and to come and try to figure out what it was. And there was nobody else closer than Chicago that was a rolfer, and he was unavailable. And so I was pretty much thrown on my own into an area where I had to learn right fast. You know, how to use the recipe and try to figure out how to work with somebody who was diagnosed with 6 months terminal lupus, for example, and various things. So it was really a case of having nothing but the recipe to go by. And occasionally, once I got a client, and I called Peter Melchior, who was, you know, the person closest in area and closest to me that I thought I could get an answer from. And it was a person who came in with an amputation at the knee. And that was fine until I got to the second hour. And then the recipe said, work on that leg. It's like, well, what do I do with that? And I did one, did the leg that was intact. And she said after I did that, she said, oh, that's so much better. It feels so much better. Now the other one feels worse. And she felt that she was totally out of balance because only one lower leg and foot had been worked with. And so I had to figure out what to do about that. And so I did what I could. And then I called Peter and said, what can I do about this? He said, I don't know. He said, I've never had to deal with that. So I called Jan Sultan, and he didn't know. So finally I called Ida. And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, Ida, haven't you ever worked with something like this? And she said, well, of course I have. And I said, well, why don't you know? She said, well, I've never seen the girl. How do I know? You know? So I had to figure out an alternative to what the recipe said to do for that particular situation. So that's where I started from. And to me, it feels to me as if the work I'm doing now would never be described by anyone watching it as following the recipe, but I believe that I am in a certain way that it's like, I like to believe that all work post 10 was built on the foundation of the first 10 sessions. And I believe that all work done since I stopped following the recipe as I learned it, but modified it according to my understandings. That still is still the foundation of my understanding. So I valued having had that tool that I could use to learn what I needed to learn to become competent, to try to feel competent at what I was doing. So I don't, when a person comes in for a 10, who's never been raw, they say they want a 10 series. That's pretty rare nowadays in my experience. Most of what I get are people who have been to other golfers and want advanced work. But I still look at the body in terms of the first hour and just do a brief checkout in terms of, okay, what's going on in the upper body in relationship to the structure of the body as a whole. First, what were the goals of the first hour, and how do they apply? How do they apply to my understanding of what I'm seeing? Now, I may go anywhere in the body now to start, not where the first hour said to start, but it's still in the back of my understanding. Generally speaking, lifting the upper body off the lower body in the first hour looks like a good thing to do, no matter what they come in with. So that's how I tend to understand the recipe.
So I'd like to throw a question out here then. Buddy, I'm just curious about, from listening to Tom and how that is affecting you, hearing what he's saying, especially with where you're at in your practice and with your teaching. What's important that you're taking from this? And then maybe we can all chime in a little bit. And you're muted right now, buddy.
I'm really appreciative to hearing Tom's process and the learning process of getting the information of the 10 series and how it came in. That I know that my process, there was this kind of established format. So I took in this idea of this 10 series that was, I have drawings and notes and lots of different styles of doing 10 series. So it's interesting to hear how kind of amorphous the idea was at the beginning, and then how it's kind of coalesced into something. And it's this something that we've all work with. And I'm fascinated that, Tom, you still work with it, and you have your own vision of what you're doing. It's inspiring to hear where you've gone with it, and it gives me I hope for the longevity of my process in terms of looking to the future. Gosh, there's so much more to go here, and I really appreciate that. I feel like I've been, you say you spent 5 years diligently doing the 10 series. I feel like I'm still just doing that. I'm not really separated from that place, and I'm still ready, maybe to leap away from it a little bit, but still, I'm very I'm excited to hear that you're still focused on it. It still keeps a thread. You're tethered to it, if you will, and it doesn't leave your mind about where you are in relationship to the 10 series.
Yeah, and I feel that at this point in what I'm doing, that I think it could be described as almost entirely intuitive. I mean, that's how it feels to me. That's how people, watching me do it, figure it's like I know, but I don't know how I know or why I know. And it's a very intuitive process. But to me, intuition is what occurs based on a body of experience. The experience patterns itself in your consciousness to the point where you don't have to know how you know anymore.
What do you think about that, Shawnee?
I'm sorry, Liz, can you repeat that?
I'm just watching you, and you're taking it in, and I'm wondering what thoughts are going through your mind right now.
Well, the first primary thought is that from the very first time of my training with you, and by the way, Tom was my initial teacher in the first part back in 81. I remember people taking a lot of notes in class, and I'm a very intuitive, visual, tactile sort of learner, so I almost never take notes. What happens for me is if I try to run my learning through writing, it interferes with the other part of my learning. So for me, specifically to the question, from day one, it's always been a matter of a big overview and a context, even with the 10. And that's what I keep finding always in my work, specifically if somebody walks in with, and they always walk in with something, I'll fix this. And to come to your question, Rebecca, for me, it's like if I always am conscious and aware of that larger context of what we're trying to accomplish in the first or second or third session becomes a larger context, which was kind of why I was curious about the axes discussion, a larger context of what it is that we're going about in the human body. And for me, it just kind of becomes larger and larger so that I can hold that. There's no symptom that anybody comes in with that I can't put into the context of working within the session. There's always a way to intentionally include that and hold that in the work of the session.
Yeah. So Jim, can you hear me, Jim? I'm curious for you as a newer practitioner. You're hearing all of this. How you what you're experiencing right now?
Perhaps I haven't put a lot of this into words, but when I hear people speak, I'm familiar with that in my own experience of the work. But I haven't really, maybe I've never really talked about it so much and made it so clear, and I can't even, I don't know what else, I don't know what I could add, but it's true that I am holding like the intuitive, like the basic 10 series plus intuition and some balance, and it's hard for me to even say which one I'm working from. I guess I kind of, I don't know, I guess within the structure it's pretty much intuition, but it's not, I guess in the moment it's from intuition somehow, but from in the, but I still have that structure. That's what I'm thinking.
I think there's something to hold on to that's valuable, to have that structure for some of us in the foreground and for others in the background. And it reminds me of being in class with you, Tom, where you had asked a question to people, what is your goal for the session, but what's your overall goal? And what I learned was that you were actually, Tom Wing, when you were with your client in a classroom environment, you were seeing what was going on, but you were actually looking at the whole 10 series as you're holding that whole space, not just the focus of a session. And I wonder, Tom Wing, what you would say to those of us that are newer, who, I've been in class with you, Tom, where it can be very confusing to see what you're doing, and yet you achieve the goal of a session, but somehow you're holding the whole space.
And where I'd like to go with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about how I work now. Okay.
That'd be great.
And what I hold as my modus basically for approaching the work and doing the work at this point. And to me, at this point, what becomes primary is establishing a communication relationship with the person, with the system. I'm going to call it the system because it's the person, the body, and whatever else is brought in when this person walks in, is to try to establish a communication, a conversation or something along those lines. And to, I mean, I'm very tactile. I get most of my information by touch, and always have. So for me, I see it as a person comes in and they tell me, they tell me what they brought in. You know, they tell me why they're there, what they're looking for, what they want, what their body's telling them, and they tell me. And so I, I hold that as, okay, the body is telling the person in the body that this is an issue. And then when I work then I start work, I put my hands on, and I try to get the sense of establishing a communication with the body, aside from what the person has told me, and holding what they've told me is in the back of my mind. And then asking the body, okay, asking, you know, once I feel like, okay, you know, there we are together, then I ask the body, okay, what can I do to further what you need to ease off these symptoms, basically, or to progress the system to a higher level. I take the symptoms as being the warning that something in the system is out of balance. And so I work with how to reestablish the balance in the system as a whole, so that the red light goes off. And then, so I basically put it out there and say, okay, what do you want me to do? And then I'm told what to do. Then I know that I say, well, okay, what should I do? And then I do something. I do something, you know, it gets go, oh, come over here. No, I'm there. Now what do I do? Go there, go there. And I feel like I'm being in a conversation where I ask, okay, now what, now what? And then I get an answer. And then I work on the basis of the answer that I've gotten. And that's pretty much how I work. So it's not, you know, yeah, that's it. And so that's how I'm working with people. And it took me probably 30 plus years to trust that when I got something, it was true. You know what I mean? I think, oh, that's just, I made that up, but to be able to just trust the fact that once communication, contact, communication, relationship, whatever you want to call it, once that is established, that the information I'm getting is something to move on. And when I do, the results are good. When I don't, I think, oh, well, no, really, I mean, that shoulder needs it. I know that shoulder needs something. And I go to work on the shoulder and it's not what it needs at all. So in that sense, I'm trusting the knowing that comes not from my analysis, not from what I think. I'm trying to get out of the way of what I think so that I can receive the information from the system I'm working with as to what to do. And when I follow that, I have good results. When I don't follow that, I have less good results. So I don't know if that's particularly useful. Excuse me, I'm in Florida. We've got these big water bugs this big. And he was crawling on my leg.
It reminds me of, I heard this saying, don't believe everything. I should not believe everything I think.
Yes. I found that I could, when I overthink what to do, then I get myself in trouble.
Yeah. I see you shaking your head, yes, Tom Robinson. You're muted, Tom.
I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, sorry, folks. This is an iPad. You can hear me now. But I've lost Tom's signal. I don't know. Well, let's see. I had quite a. I mean, my background, my childhood was a pretty intellectual and scholastic one, and so I was in my head when I arrived at Prescott College, but I was going there because it was experiential and it would be less intellectual, really. And that's where I got turned on to getting Rolf. It's where I met Tom and Heather, and started to lead a life that had more balance between mind and body, or head and body. And now I want to say one thing too about the head is now I view the head as a very important body part instead of where a lot of ideas come from. And that's been a profound transformation for me. It just went through just gave somebody a 7th hour that was very successful and was really excited about coming to understand that. But let's see. Go back, give me your question again, Liz.
Well, it wasn't so much a question, it was more of a way to engage you into the conversation. Yeah. That I saw you agreeing and sort of chuckling.
Well, yeah, I mean, I found myself in just what Tom talked about. Maybe I'm early to this, but this experience of thinking I should do something. I'm at this point in this series. I would progress through here. I need to work on the shoulder, and it turns out the shoulder needs hardly anything, even though it's part of this particular session. It's part of the recipe at this time. But this shoulder isn't very bothered. Farther down the ribs, there's a lot to work on. That sort of thing of noticing a mix of intuition and recipe to get through the session, but finding that there are parts of the session that don't need a lot of work and other parts that need more. That's kind of a technical experience, but when people come for not session work, and I'm trying to just do 10 series work, but there are people who come for just single sessions. I find myself sometimes fixing their shoulders by fixing their hips. This kind of thing about they give me a history about one part of their body, but it turns out if I work in another area, I will also address that, but it'll become more whole. And that's kind of exciting to me. And it still has a kind of miracle feel to me. It's still not something I'm used to. So does that help, Liz?
What do you guys think?
Well, I guess I'm, filtering this all through, and I remember when I was in your class, Tom, and I asked something like, how do you know what to do? And you did say, I'm told what to do. And I think I pressed on and I said, well, how do you know? And you said something like, I feel it in my body. And, I've never forgotten that. I've always sort of held it. And I do notice that as I'm working more and more, I am trusting what just comes to me, the knowledge that just comes to me, and working from there rather than what's in my head. But it's fascinating to me in a continuing sort of inquiry of how does that knowledge come in? It has to do somehow with my being relaxed and open enough, and that somehow all my perceptions are sort of relaxed and open, that this knowledge can come in. And it does have to do with getting out of my head. So, but just really being relaxed and breathing and feeling my own body so that I'm really fully there. So I'm always fascinated, particularly, and interested with Tom, because Tom, you work so intuitively, and I am still wondering, how do you get yourself to that place of openness so that you are hearing and perceiving what to do? What's your process on some level?
Well, I'm going to give you my current process that is working best for me. And that's, I'm going to go back a bit. You need a little background on this one. In class, in every class I took with Ida, she would show a movie, one of these instructional J. Arthur Rank productions that you get in high school and junior high school. And are you hearing
Yes.
me? Yeah. And This one is called Power of 10.
Mm.
And it was, and I think there's several editions that are newer and available on YouTube and so forth, but she showed this. It showed a family picnicking on a hill. And you were at a distance of what, I don't know, 20 feet, 40 feet, something like that. And then every second, the distance of view from the viewpoint of this family was taken to the next power, exponential power. And so by the time you got to the third power, you were way up, looking back at the Earth, you know, and all the way out to 10, which was out in the cosmos, the galaxy somewhere. And then after 10 seconds, then it zoomed back to the family, and then the next 10 seconds, it went the other way to the negative power. So they went into the body, into the body, into the body, into the body, to the point where at the end of 10 seconds, it looked just like it had at the end of the other 10 seconds. And that interested me, you know, and it stayed with me. And I was doing a meditation process about a year or so ago. And, okay, no, back up. There's a piece in the middle you need to know. In my advanced class, I was doing an advanced series on a man that I had worked the first 10 with. And he was about 6'2" and weighed about 130 pounds. And when he came in, Ida said, well, you know, it's clear what you have to do with this man in his advanced series. You need to scrape enough tissue off the bone to organize it. Ida was always very sensitive, you know. And so anyway, I was working with him one day, and he was on a bench, and I was working down in the, you know, right here in the neck, in the triangle, right through there. And Ida was yelling at me, go deeper, deeper, deeper. And I'm going in to the point where I'm terrified. And I'm not going anywhere. And so she gets up, comes across, and she gets on the other side of his body on the same place, well, you know, the corresponding spot on the other side. She said, now, feel me through his body. Feel where I am. Now you follow me, follow me. And she started going in, and I was following her. And I was getting more and more scared. You know, there's stuff in there I didn't want to mess with. And so I'd start to pull back a little bit. She'd yell at me, stay with me. Go a little more, stay with me. And every time I tried to not go, she'd yell at me to stay with her. So we were going and going, and I reached the point where my circuits blew. I reached a point where I couldn't see, I couldn't feel, I couldn't move. All I could do was hear. My hearing was the only sense left to me. And then there I am standing there catatonic by the stool, and she goes there, you know, when all this, and that's when all this happens. And it was the last thing in the day, and so I hear, she says, okay, that's it, we can go now. And I hear people leaving, I'm still standing there, my client leaves, I'm standing there, and 2 other people in the class come and pick me up, put me in the car, take me home, work on me for an hour to bring me back. So I asked the next time I saw him, he came in for his another session, and I said, I need to know, when Dr. Rolf and I were working with you together and something happened, what was your experience of that? And he says, oh, he said, that was the most wonderful experience I've ever had. He said, it was like going out into the universe on a glad shout of joy. I went, okay, so that's something I've thought about, you know, and I just was like, I thought she'd taken me to the edge of the known universe and then pushed me over into some place that was so fast I couldn't do anything. Okay, so that was back in '76. It was the end in December of '76. About 6 months or a year ago, I was doing a meditation process with a friend of mine. And suddenly I was out in the universe during the meditation. It was just blasting out into this incredible state, ecstatic state. And I came back, you know, and he said, well, what happened? I said, well, I can't explain it. I can't talk about it. All I can think of is it was like pictures I've seen of galaxies. And it was energy stuff and all that. And so I started looking through Hubble and spacecraft photographs to see if I could find a galaxy picture that I could use to try to describe my experience. Well, I finally found I found about 40 pictures that I thought, okay, it's not it, but it's closer. That's not it. That's not it, but it's close. It's close. It's close. So I got the 40, and then I reduced them to 10, and out of the 10, I picked one. And it's interesting that this is just a side thing, but out of the 10, 9 of them were the same galaxy. And it happened to be the one that is in the constellation that most interested me all my life, which is Orion. I'd always been fascinated by Orion. I looked up in the sky to find Orion in the winter. And so 9 of these were in Orion, and one of them wasn't. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So anyway, it felt like it was an energy that opened me to the universe. You know, I felt like I was open to experience this energy. So about a week later, and I'm working with somebody and I'm stuck. You know, it's like, okay, what do I do? And I'm not getting what I need to do. And so it came to me to just think about that picture and think about that experience. Well, let me tell you, it really opened up incredibly the amount of information I was getting that I could use. I just was like being carried through the process, through the series, the session after that, with following that, and just focusing on that picture of that galaxy, that energetic. And I thought, okay, so that's what I do now. When I get stuck and I'm not sure about my knowing, I go back to that experience of that moment as best I can. And out of that comes knowing. I don't know if that's at all useful to you. But I think that's how it worked with me. But I think that just keep working and with the intention of being open to receive the information. And I think that things happen. You don't plan to have happen. You weren't going there to have it happen. Yeah. But something happens, and then you have a breakthrough in your capacity to change your consciousness of the moment to a more open state. And more, I mean, it's more information available if I go galactic than if I stay in the room I'm in. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody but me. But
yes, it does.
It works for me, and I think it's just a question of putting out an intention of your own that you find a way to do that. That you know that comes to you, or whatever it is.
I'm curious about what's happening for everybody on the call right now, what you're noticing in your body and in our room, because it's feeling bigger.
Not hearing you very well.
Can you hear me, Tom?
Not very well.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just, and it's interesting, my screen just got really big on my computer, which is fascinating. It really just expanded. Everybody's face got, the whole shape changed. But I was asking about what everyone in our room was noticing in themselves right now, because I am having an experience of much more expansion in me. And I'm just curious what y'all are noticing, and if you want to chime in and give Tom some feedback about his impact on you right now.
Well, I'm just feeling very appreciative. I'm just breathing better. And I get it. I get what you're saying. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it much too, and it feels. I guess um, not that I do the same thing, but something along those lines. So I feel helps me feel more uh, more a part of this this way of work, this lineage of working. I would say feel yep much more yeah closer, feel closer to you. Thank you.
You feel closer to Tom? That's nice.
I'd like to make a comment here if I may. First of all, Tom, I'm feeling a lot of joy knowing that there are other people out there that have strange things that happen. That makes me feel a little less insane sometimes. It's been my observation
Strange
because
things.
it's been interesting to me during my whole career to kind of try to figure out how people get what they get. And the conclusion that I've come to thus far is that we're all bringing in certain gifts that are very individual. They're like, we all know how to do handwriting, but all of our handwriting is different. I think it's great to explore how other people get their stuff, but I think the biggest challenge in this kind of work, because to me it is an art form, is that the work itself requires you to grapple with how do I find how I get my stuff, because that's part of becoming a master to me. You have to grapple with all of the things that basically get in the way of that. And for me, my observation is that a lot of that for people is being narrow in focus, being narrow in how you comprehend the task in front of you. And by that, I mean putting it in terms of too much anatomy, too much, what do I do right now, instead of just like coming and seeing from back here. When I first look at someone, it's like I actually am looking from way out beyond my fingertips and way behind me so that I can just get the whole scope of, I don't want to use words like energy, but for me, it's I've got to make everything really open and big. And however you do that is how you allow, it's like you can't make yourself be psychic. You have to relax and open. And if I may, kind of, Rebecca, because to me this is a link to your question that you posed that was very specific about how do you take care of yourself. I've made it a point through my career, and by the way, I don't have any hurt hands and no big bulgy knuckles. I made it a point through my career to make sure that whatever I'm doing, my body is comfortable physically and it's open. I had a real interesting experience just a month or so ago. I hosted Pilar Martin teaching a female pelvis workshop. And this is a very small woman who is extremely graceful. And when I was just caught watching her work, that no matter what she's doing, her entire physical being and energetic being is open and soft and relaxed. And her work is very intense. So if this helps,
Yes.
to me, part of the issue when people are saying my body's hurting or my hands are getting in trouble is that you're doing too much. You need to lighten up on this and start coming from here. Figure out how to come from way back here and channel it through.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, Bob Schrei, I'm wondering if you want to throw anything in here.
Well, I think there's an important question here that's been brought up is like, where do we get our information from? And, I've heard, Tom, you said you get it from the relationship You know, you get it from going out into the cosmos. And I think we get different information from different sources. And I think that that's part of what we need to be clear about is what those sources are. And whether or not we can get out of the way enough to be told. You know, for me, I feel like I also get information and I'm told what to do, but my reference point is, you know, Dr. Rolfe said in her book, there is a blueprint for human structure, platonic blueprint for human structure.
Bob, could you repeat that? It's hard to hear you.
Yes, I'll get closer to the screen here. So in terms of like what sources we're getting our information from, I was saying that for me, what I referred to is Dr. Rolfe talked about this platonic blueprint for the human structure. And I think that's a really profound statement. And for me, that's what my reference point is in terms of asking what to do. In other words, like, you know, what needs to be done here to increase our resonance with that blueprint, platonic blueprint. And so I'm asking, I'm relating to a very specific source for my information, which is that blueprint.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Actually, for you were talking, Tom, about intuition. I'm thinking I'm using my intuition instead of feeling. But actually, I really wanted to get back to your story with Ida, and you went into this trance state. Was that cellular memory that put you to this, took you to that place? Tom Wing?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I never thought of it in those terms. No, to me, what took me to that place was Ida. I mean, she, you know,
Okay.
it was not a place that I knew about, and it didn't have a sense of familiarity at all. It just felt like a, you know, she overloaded my autonomics, and I went catatonic.
Okay. Okay.
It was that simple.
That was my experience of what happened. Then as I got more information about what, you know, from my client is what it was for him, then it went, well, okay, it was all right then, you know, and my fear was, oh my God, you know, if it did that to me, what happened to him? You know, is he going to be able to come back the next day? And
Well,
I just filed it away as something I had no idea about, except, man, she took me into another universe, and I avoided that universe for years. I mean, there were moments in the years that followed where I felt like I was on the verge of accessing that. You know, I come to the edge where you go, if you go any further, you're going to fall into that place again. Go right back. And it wasn't until I was willing to risk, you know, that kind of experience. I mean, it was not pleasant. It was overwhelming.
But to move on, that place was a gift for you and continues to be a gift.
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. She's
okay.
You know, she's my prime source, and she did things to me and with me that I still resonate and work from. And when I work in, I also would just want to add a little clarification here. I'm not explication, I guess, is that whenever I experiment, from the time I started, whenever I diverted from the given that I knew was given, then what I would do, I'd try something and see what happened. And was it in a line with what I was intending to have happen? You know, did it fit? Was it appropriate to where we were going? And did it work? Basically, is the bottom line. And so whenever I work with people now, I'll do something. I'll do a unit of work. You know, like one move, or holding something for a bit, or, you know, moving tissue, you know. And then as soon as that has been done, I step back and check, okay, what happened? Did it work? Is it taking us toward what we said, where we said we wanted to go? And to me, that's one of the big gifts of this work. I mean, the work we're doing is incredibly challenging. I mean, you've got to admit that it takes a lot of courage to do what we do with another human being. And to me, my safety fallback on that is, okay, try something, did it work? If it did, okay. If it didn't, try something else. Try something else until it does work. And you tell it works by, did it progress the process we're in to a more positive relationship of the body in gravity. And so that's my basic checkpoint of myself when I try something, when I do something. And so I practically never do two things in a row without, you know, without standing back and checking, okay, now what's there? And now what's there? And now what's there? Because so many times when I work, I'll do something and I think I know what's happened, and I step back and I see something else has happened somewhere else, or maybe not in place of, but in addition to. And for the, I entertain myself sometimes by watching people's heads and necks when I'm working with them. And you know, I'm working along, you see their heads, it moves over here, and then it moves over here, and it moves over there, and it moves back and forth. And it goes over here and it goes there, and it's like, and I'm nowhere near the net. You know, it's just, oh wow. The first time that happened, I was terrified. I said, oh my God, head's going off. Gotta go fix the net. Go fix the net, come back and do another move, the head goes off. So it's really, for me, be willing to be open to trying something I've never done before, or doing it in a way I've never done before, or consider it in a way I've never done before, and then check it against the physical component of what happened. Yeah, just wanted to put that out there so it's not all just, you know, intuition without checking.
Yeah, so Tom, so basically what you're saying is that you use a highly intuitive process within a very clear set of goals and principles.
Yeah. It's not quite that cut and dry.
Okay.
But the person comes in and they've got something. And so I take that as that sets the goal for the session. You know, when they come in and say, this is bothering me a lot.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's okay. Then the question is, what can I do to, that is a message of a disturbance in the system. And so what do I need to do to positively affect that disturbance so that it doesn't need to be there as much? And at this point, you know, it's like, I don't know where I'm going to do that. I'm not going to know how we do that. You know, it's just like, okay, that becomes the goal of the session, unless it shifts during the session. And sometimes it'll shift during the session. You know, that or that symptom will go away, or the person will say, wow, you worked down there and everything up here feels good now. You know, so that is okay. Then what do we do next? So the meta goal is always, the intention is always to do something which will progress the relationship of the body's comfort in gravity, its efficiency, its proper workings, just more, you know. And yeah, that's always my main goal. And it's always in reference to when they get up and move, what has happened, you know? What is their experience of what's happened?
Well, Tom, I'm hearing that as that is your clear framework. Is, you know, what does this structure need in order to get to this best place?
Yes, that's my framework for the work.
Right.
Now, how I get that information, you know, that's variable over time.
Amen.
It reminds me of the, I don't know if I have the quote exactly, of Ida Rolf saying, I don't know why it works. I only know that it works, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and to reaffirm your other comment, Tom, I remember Emmett telling me, if you want to be a master, you have to take the time to look at what you've done before you continue on. When I mentor people, I that's one of the things that I teach them is you need to stop and just look at what's happening, continually keep checking in. And there's times when you actually need to, in one way or another, kind of step away. And that can be subtle or as big as, taking a drink of water. But it's like kind of, for me, it's like you get very enmeshed in the field. And I think you do too, Tom. You kind of get in the field. And then I need to kind of come back out and reassess and see what's left.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also, when I mentor people, I tell them, the only true source of information is this system you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all the information is that you need. It comes through there. It's not necessarily through here or what I think of. But then once the information comes, it's my job to evaluate it. That's at some point in time in some way, and step back and look. Is that information useful or not? Remember one time, it was in the advanced class I was with. There was somebody in the advanced class who kept asking Ida, well, is it true that? Is it true that? Is it true that? We kept putting everything in terms of, was it true that? And Ida, one day she'd had enough, and she said, look, that's a question nobody's been able to answer. Truth, she said. She said, so it's not a useful thing to ask yourself. She said, you try something, it works, it's true. You try something, it doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's not true, but it means it doesn't work, so don't bother with it. Don't try to find out what's true to make it work.
That's great.
Is this helping you, Edward Hamburger?
Sorry?
Is this helpful to you?
Yeah. I was thanks for asking. I was a little rattled by the whole trying to get on the call, so I was trying to stop making myself wrong. Like, what the hell's wrong with me? Yeah. Actually, Tom, I'm Tom Wing. I'm not actually that incident, because it's such a great story. That happened to not you, or did that happen to you, or did that happen to one of the clients in the class? I'm sorry, I wasn't quite clear because I'm on the phone. That incident where you went into that other place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that you?
That was me. That was me that went catatonic. The client got up and walked out.
That was you, right?
What?
That was you.
The person. No, I was the practitioner. I was working on the man.
Gotcha.
So that happened to me as the Rolfer.
Yeah.
What happened to him was he went out into the universe on a glad shout of joy. What happened to me was I fell off the edge of the universe and into darkness and terror.
Maybe it was happening to both of you.
What's that?
It was something was happening for both of you.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I must say that the next morning, Ida's secretary came in and said, Dr. Rolf needs to take a little more rest this morning before she comes in. And I thought to myself, yeah, good.
She went off the universe too.
Yes.
I got the old lady too.
I do have another question, Tom Wing. What about if you're not in the space of, because I think 99% of the time, can you hear me okay? Hello? Can you hear?
I'm having some trouble. Let me get closer to the screen, to my instrument.
My thought was, when you talk about intuition, that what if you're not in the space of intuition, I'm assuming you just tap into your body. How do you actually make that go down? Do you know what I mean? Like when you're not using your intuition, what do you do?
Okay. When I get desperate, I go to anatomy.
Okay. And what else? What did you say?
I said, that's all I said.
You go
When
to
I get desperate,
anatomy.
I go to anatomy. And then
Gotcha.
yeah.
What do you do, Ed?
You know, that's really a tough one. Like, I think I said this before. I think I'm, you know, a lot of times when the person's on the table, I would say like, okay, I'm going to use my intuition. But then I wonder to myself, am I really using it? As Tom Wing has said this whole time, am I in my head when am I doing it? Or, you know, or am I in, you know, where am I? And a lot of times I don't think I am. And working with Dr. Finley for 10 years, you know, a lot of times there was forget about intuition. It was just, you know, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You know, and get them in and get them out. So I don't know if I answered your question, Liz, but I think I try to when I can. But it's something I think I need to look at. It's the furthest thing from my mind about using my intuition, to be honest with you.
Well, that may that may be what keeps you right in the moment then, not thinking too much.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to recognize we have about 8 more minutes, and I'm wondering how we could say goodbye to Tom, and what would be valuable for each of us in our ending our call.
Well, I don't want to say goodbye.
Well, that's a great thing then, Rebecca. I could ask Tom if things were to line up, would you come back and do another call with us?
Sure.
Great.
Yeah. If people find it useful, yes.
Well, hopefully you would find it useful also. I heard, what did you say, Bob Stry?
That hopefully we don't have to wait another 30 years.
Right.
Hopefully I won't be here in another 30 years.
Tom, are you doing any workshops, any teaching, formal teaching,
Well,
or?
I took a break from it. You know, I did a series of teachings where I did 5 classes in a row, 5 full classes.
Uh-huh.
And it really burned me out. It took a year and 2 months to do it. But, and so I've been holding back, but I've started doing workshops again.
Oh.
Yeah, I like to do 3-day workshops. And so I've done a couple, well, I've done a few here and there in the last 5 years, but not very many, but I'm ready to do more.
Oh, great.
I mean, so I'm terrible at setting them up. You know, but I'm willing to travel anywhere, anytime to do one.
Okay.
Tom, that happens to be one of my gifts, so I would like to have another conversation with you. Are you on Facebook?
No.
Too bad. That's a really nice place to connect.
No.
Tom is one of the few people I know that uses his iPhone to talk.
There's a whole big universe out there, Tom, that you can fall into.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. About it.
When you guys all hang up, you'll get an email from me shortly with the clip that Tom had been mentioning called The Powers of 10. I've sent it to each of you so you can watch it. And it's a very beautiful clip that I happen to have on my computer. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. How else can we say goodbye? What would be helpful to any of you?
I want to thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for all your so many years of sincere dedication to the work and to carrying on Ida's teachings and her vision.
I love doing it. I love working. You know, it's the biggest game in town.
Liz, thank you for making all of this possible.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
Yeah.
my pleasure.
Yeah.
Tom, Bob, what?
Tom, it's just wonderful to see you again.
You too.
And I appreciate interacting with everybody on these calls. It always gives me like a sense of dimensionality that I really enjoy.
Thank you so much.
I would consider asking you guys to see what you notice when you get off the call. I know two of you have been on every call with me, Shani and Jim, and I know that I have a different experience after each call from the person that the group that we've been with together and the subject. And I do want to also thank you, Tom, because I know that when I have time with you, whenever we get our time, I usually feel like I can go out and be completely quiet within myself and be focused. So
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to how I am when we hang up.
I'm looking forward to how I am too.
Can I say something? Maybe I
Yes.
wanted to say, but I didn't have a chance. But I think our consciousness is so expansive and profound, and like Ida work is like an initiation into a state of being. I think that's the uniqueness of the work, and we're continuing to expand the universe of consciousness, and that's very unique. And it's kind of what Rolfing isn't. I think that's what Rolfing is. It's that lineage of consciousness that's expanding into new dimensions. Not so that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Jim just said, Tom. Any stories about Ida is always, I just love the stories. I can't get enough of them. So thank you for being who you are. Thank you.
And Ed, I will make a personal project of making sure that you can get online with ease next week.
Sounds like a plan.
Tom Robinson, anything you'd like to close with?
My connection has been a little sketchy, so I was in and out some. But it was just wonderful to hear from you, Tom. And I've certainly got that sense of spaciousness. I was just in a Mary Bond workshop, and that was the same thing. I came out, and if I was one word, it was space. And I'm having that again, and it's wonderful. It's just a lot of space, and then we can bring that to our clients. So all is good. Thank you very much, Tom.
Buddy, Bob Schrei, any closing comments?
Thank you, Tom. It's good to see you again. I think you've gotten wiser.
Good to see you, Bob.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. This has been a really, really great talk. I really appreciate it. Really. Everybody, thank you.
And Tom, I would love to invite you, and I hope I'm not outing anyone too soon, but Bob Schrei will be doing one of these calls coming up. And I have a number of other people, David Davis and some women in instructional integration. So I'd love to have you come in, Tom, as a participant and be one of us and sit back and see what's been going on.
Oh yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to get ready to exit the call, which means when I press the end meeting, I'm going to stop the recording now.